Welcome to the Three Principles Global Community webinar. My name is Stephanie Benedetto. The Three Principles Global Community, or 3PGC, is a nonprofit organization that is committed to bringing an understanding of the three principles as introduced by Sydney Banks to people throughout the world. And today, our special guest is Dicken.bettinger, who is going to share with us a bit about being guided by the feeling of wisdom. Dicken.bettinger is a retired licensed clinical psychologist, and his career has focused on psychological well-being. In 1986, he met Sydney Banks and the Three Principles. These days, he offers 4-day immersion retreats for individuals and couples, practitioner development, and individualized training programs. He also enjoys leading group seminars in the US and throughout Europe. Dicken is the co-author of a book on the three principles called Coming Home, and he has been happily married for 50 years with 2 adult children, 4 adored grandchildren, and he enjoys photography, hiking, canoeing, and traveling the world. And you're just back from a trip to Maui, I hear, Dicken. So welcome back, and thank you for being here. It's all yours.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. Thank you, everybody. It's wonderful to see people here. Welcome. Appreciate you coming. Sit back, relax. Yeah, Stephanie was mentioning that I just got back from the first real getaway that my wife and I have had for the last 3 years. Just the two of us without family or friends, or to be able to be off by ourselves. And we spent almost our whole time outdoors for 10 days. And there's something about being in nature, isn't it, that we naturally tend to quiet down. And then we start having that vacation feeling, which is really the feeling Sid Banks kept trying to point us toward, that the feeling of just being, that's accessible to us anytime, anywhere. So I want to talk about what I've been seeing about the connection between that natural feeling that we all have when we fall out of our thinking and begin to rest fully in the present moment, as we all do at times. It's just natural. And how the connection between that feeling and a deeper intelligence that's there available to us to guide us through life. So that's what I got inspired to talk about. When I was on my vacation, I didn't take much to read with me, but one thing I took was a talk that Sid Banks had given called The Great Spirit, and he wrote it in respect for Native American spirituality. And they see that there's a great spirit, that everything, we're living in an infinite field of spirit. Nowadays, the quantum physicists would say we live in a quantum field that's an infinite field of pure energy. And they recently came out with a research study that said if you take everything in the universe that has form, from the largest suns and all the stars, all the planets, everything that has form in the universe, and you measure the amount of energy involved in that, it's only 4% of the universe. that the rest is dynamic, alive, formless energy, dark matter. Well, that's one way of talking about spirituality, is we're all living in this vital, alive field of energy. But it's not a passive field, because it's out of that field of formless energy that everything is created. Everything. We're part of creation. It blows me away. Right at this moment, we are connected to that energy, and it's living us. Isn't it quite evident to you that you're not living yourself? That something is beating your heart? Isn't it quite evident? Could you imagine if you had to be responsible for your pancreas? Something's living that thing, without which we'd be in trouble. We're being lived by an energy. It's constantly creating and generating mental activity in our brains, our little biocomputer. It's constantly generating mental activity. I talked to a neurologist. He says it's traveling around in there at the speed of light, activating things that allow us to experience life. We're being lived by this energy. It's nice to think of the principles as energy rather than as ideas, because they're not ideas, not the way Sid Banks used them. They're us, the energy creating us, living us, being us. So in this talk I read by Sid Banks, he was honoring the way Native American spirituality talks about the Great Spirit, and that everything is created as spirit. So you have the spirit wind, the spirit water, the spirit trees, the spirit flowers. They're all this energy dancing into form. It's so funny to me when people say, I don't do the principles, or I'm not doing the principles. They're doing you. They're living you. They're forces. Sometimes Sid would say, principles are forces. And you can, it's all the same movement from nothing, out of nothing is the miracle of life. Something is created. So there's a stillness, and then a movement into form. In Hawaii, they say the aloha spirit is that which moves the wind, moves the trees, moves the waters, and it's moving us all the time. It's moving my hand. Is bringing words to mind, is creating words that come to mind to say to you. We're all part of that illustrious, glorious dance of life energy. No exceptions. Here's a metaphor. When we're caught up in our thinking, we're sort of a closed system. So think of a flute that's not being played. And then you blow wind into this flute and you get beautiful music. We're like that. We're wind flutes, every one of us. And when our minds and hearts are open, the wind movement of life energy blows through us, and it creates the music of beautiful feelings. We call that well-being. Out of the well of our being comes this new and fresh music, feelings of well-being, and a knowing that's not of the intellect. And they go hand in hand. So that's what I want to that's what I want to talk about. I was in Maui, and it was very windy, and so I really got into the wind and how the wind animates and moves. The palm trees are just dancing in the wind. So I'd like to, because not many people have heard this talk by Sid Banks, there were 4 little paragraphs that speak directly to this. And I want to take each paragraph because he makes a different point in each paragraph, and then I'll talk about it, reflect on it with you. Okay, he says, one very important thing to remember is spiritual wisdom lies within every human being. I gotta stop. I gotta say something about that. Sid Banks lived on a little island up in the northwest here, Salt Spring Island. I talked to him one day, and he said at one point a couple hundred people a day were getting off the ferry on this island looking for him. And he was puzzled. He said, I have no idea how they heard about me. Well, the word spread that there was a man who had had an enlightenment experience, and people who were interested in those sort of things were coming from all over the world to find this guy and to hear what he had to say. I said, Sid, what did you say to him? Okay, listen to this. He said, I told him to go home. I said, you can't get wisdom from another person, and you won't get it from this island. You can only find it deep within the quiet of your own being. And that's where it reveals itself to us as deeper feeling, as new and fresh thinking, as insight, inspiration, innovation, all those cool in words. When Sid talked about inside, he made it very clear, I'm not talking about inside your body. Inside means invisible, before or beyond the physical. Remember, we're living in this infinite field of energy. 96% of it is invisible. It's formless energy, pure energy, dancing life into existence, sustaining life, guiding life. Okay, we'll come back to this first paragraph. One very important thing to remember is spiritual wisdom lies within every human being, no exception, every one of you, no exception, no exceptions. And it has no boundaries. And it can enter the minds of any human being at any time when they're open and receptive, like the flute. Believe me when I say to you, when any human being is ready to receive such wisdom, it will appear for you. Such wisdom is always with you. you could say this intelligence permeates life energy, permeates everything. Everything is spiritual, and it permeates everything in the universe. And it reveals itself to us in certain conditions as human beings. So that's the first point. You all are part of it. It's a built-in thing. Sid would say, nobody on this earth is wiser than you. You may not access it as fully as other people, but you have as much ability to access that as anybody else. You just can't think your way to it. And that's his second point. Let's go on. Let's go on to his second point here. And another thing to remember is when you go seeking such wisdom, don't go looking with the knowledge you now have when you think about it. In other words, how's your intellect? How's your computer ever going to know what lies beyond the computer? Do you go to your laptop for a hug? Do you get love from a computer? Can you get wisdom from a computer? I know you can Google really cool stuff. I love, you can Google anything. You can Google anything. That's information. There's a difference between information and wisdom. Anything you think is not wisdom. So you can't think your way to it. And thinking about it doesn't get you any closer to it. Sid would say there's only one way to get to wisdom, only one way. You have to go beyond all thinking. You have to let it all go just for a moment. Don't panic. Your precious little ego might put up a fuss saying, oh, I won't do anything. I'll be passive. I'll die. I won't care about life. I won't be lovable. I won't. All these worries and judgments come up as we begin to go from the known to the unknown, to this space of presence that metaphorically underlies our thinking. It's always there. Metaphorically, that underlying space, Sid would often call our soul. Everybody has a soul. It's that life energy within you. It's why we say when we quiet down, people become creative. My wife's an artist. She loves dropping out of her head into that space of creativity. And there's a quiet. Always, if we can take one little step beyond our precious thought system, there's two things always. Quiet, because it's free of all the yammer, all the shoulds, all the judgments, all the labels, all the concepts that are limiting. All of what we sometimes call our negative thinking is free of all of that. It's free of positive thinking, because that can be just as limiting. It's free of that as before thought. So he said, if you can take one little step beyond your precious thought system, there is a space, presence, aliveness. It's a living energy. Some people call it the living God, not the God of concepts, ideas, beliefs, the living God, and aliveness. Are you alive? Are you alive? I've asked people that who are in mental hospitals, psychiatric wings, are you alive? And they get quiet and go, yes. Doesn't matter what mood we're in, that life energy is in us and lives us. and is accessible to us. That metaphorically, we can fall out of our thinking into the now. That's another word for this space. The now. Sid called it pure consciousness, awareness free of the limitations of our conceptual mind, unfiltered experience of life. You know the phrase, come to your senses? Dicken, you're overthinking this. You're thinking yourself into a frenzy. Come to your senses. You've all experienced that. You go for a walk. If you're thinking you don't see beauty, you won't. You can be in the most beautiful place in the world. You'll only experience whatever you're thinking. You fall out of thought and your senses start singing. They start coming alive. That's why people make such a big fuss about living in the now. It's where we enjoy anything. If you eat a beautiful meal of food and you're thinking the whole time, you won't even taste the food. You fall out of your thinking and it's like, oh my God. We used to joke with Sid because he'd always say whatever he was eating or drinking, he'd say, this is the best cup of tea I've ever had. He was just like a little baby, just experiencing things free of concept. Just, oh my God. Savoring life. In Hinduism, they have a word called rasa, meaning where you can taste the juice of life. Let's see what else Mr. Banks has to suggest to us. There is no use searching for the unknown with the already known. This would be similar to a dog chasing its own tail. And I can guarantee you, you will never in a million years find what you're looking for. Okay, his third point. Now this is where he gives, he's using words and metaphors to try and point us toward that quiet that can only be found within yourself. That's what he meant. You can't get this from somebody else. You have to experience it directly. And you're all capable of it because you are this. You're not looking for something that you don't already have. That's the joke. To realize that is the end of the search. And instead, there's a relaxing into what already is true, what already is available to us. That was one of the very first, when I started learning the principles, one of the very first insights, one of the teachers said, you already have perfect well-being. Everybody does. Wisdom is what brings well-being to everybody, and it can't be damaged or hurt because it's formless energy. If everybody has that connection, everybody in a quiet moment will experience well-being. And I've seen that to be true over the years. Last 35 years, over and again, seeing the truth of this. No matter how troubled or upset people are, in presence, these, if you will, warmer feelings start arising and filling. In the missing, or little brain space. Second Chance. In Sid's first book, Second Chance, he's talking about in quiet, there's filling with the aloha feeling. Aloha translates literally as the breath of life. The release of holding. So there's one psychological problem. We hold on to an idea and believe it to be true and then end up acting on it. And the freedom lies for any of us as we fall out of our thinking at any moment and rest in this space of presence. To allow ourselves to be nourished by our souls, to be uplifted, renewed in spirit. Be ye renewed in spirit. Renewed, made new again. So Sid was saying, this is where new and fresh comes from, is in this quiet openness, this quiet open receptivity. We become a channel so that life energy can flow through us freely and play the music of the spheres through us, where we sing our own song, not someone else's. The universal flow of life energy through our particular wind flute creates our particular song, our particular music. Third point he makes. The idea is to silence your mind, not through trying. Every time we'd try to do anything, Sid would go, oh, no. Trying is just thinking that creates stress. You already have it. When you go to bed, if you try hard to fall asleep, you won't fall asleep. But if you just let go, you fall asleep. It's the same with falling awake. It's not a doing or a trying, it's a release, a letting go, an allowing, an opening. And it's natural. If you can pick up your car keys and then drop them, you can release thought. Because it's not something we do, it's relaxing into what we are. The idea is to silence your mind and make room for such knowledge to enter. To do this, I have a good friend who sits and meditates in the forest, and he absorbs the spiritual energy from the trees. Now remember, Mother Earth is spiritual energy in disguise, including the trees, the sky, the lakes, the deer, everything. Literally everything is spirit in disguise. We are temporary condensations of energy. It's unbelievable how these physicists start sounding like mystics, where they say matter is an illusion, it's just a temporary condensation of energy. It arises, it appears, and then it disappears on a subatomic level. The dance of life, where the formless becomes informed. So we are informed by spirit. We are informed. And it's a guidance. Let me talk about a little bit about what's meant by it, it's a guide. Wisdom is not only living you, enlivening you so that you can see and hear and feel and taste and touch, bringing all of that to life the way electricity brings so many things around us to life. Enliven. A computer would not be called a computer without electricity to enliven it. It wouldn't compute. I assume many of you drive cars. Now, if you are doing too much personal thinking while you're driving, you're going to be in trouble. You're going to be closed off and your senses go dead. You won't see what's happening in front of you. You'll be distracted and you'll get into accidents or you'll drive off the road. I was talking to a state policeman. He said, all accidents are distraction. That's all they are. So we're driving our car. So in order to drive, we have to become somewhat present, which means we have to let go of enough thinking that we're aware of what's happening in front of us and around us and aware of what we're doing. And then here's the cool thing. Without using our intellect to make decisions, we are making life and death decisions constantly while we're driving. What is it that's informing us that makes those decisions? Every little move can be the difference between life and death when you're going 60 miles an hour in traffic. Walking across your living room, we get present. Something guides us through. Otherwise, we'd have bruises. Our shins would be nothing but bruises. I'm sitting in the hot sun. At a certain point, all of a sudden it occurs to me, I better move out of this sun because I'm starting to feel burnt. I didn't have to Google that. I don't have to Google how far to turn the wheel at a certain point. Information won't help you at that point. We need a deeper knowing, a deeper intelligence. Now, some people should say it's the most ordinary thing in the world. Some people would just call it a person's common sense. When our minds are relaxed and open, things occur to us that help us make sense of this moment. So we'll say, wow, that person has a lot of common sense. We all have a lot of common sense. No exceptions, except when we're caught up in our thinking. My friend Mavis Karn was teaching adolescents in a juvenile detention home and teaching them about thought and presence and common sense and deeper knowing and learning to listen for and trust one's common sense. One time Sid says, if that's the only thing any of us learned, we'd live a beautiful life. How to be able to listen for, because in order to listen, you have to be wide open and receptive to hear common sense, what makes sense. Can't get that from the intellect. The intellect goes, I should do this. No, I should do that. No, I can't. Oh, it's going to be hard. Oh, this is impossible. And then you quiet down and something occurs to you from a common ground that helps you make sense of that moment. Oh, maybe I could do this. Maybe I could, yeah, I guess maybe I could do this. Or you'll just find yourself doing it. I watched the flowers in front of our house and they turn toward the light. See, that's one role wisdom has, is it orients us toward the light. Anybody. Why? So we can absorb more light. Sid liked to think of absorbing wisdom. That when we get quiet and open enough, we begin to absorb the intelligence and it informs us. It will help you. Now, other than ordinary situations like walking across the living room, it helped me immediately and enormously in parenting. I started seeing when I'm caught up in my thinking in a low mood, I didn't have a whole lot of clarity, perspective, and common sense. And that was probably a best time to minimize the damage and do as little parenting as I could get away with. And how loving that is if you don't dump your negativity all over another person. So you can be at your worst and be loving. Just common sense. If you have a cold, you don't run up to somebody and sneeze on them. Say, oh, I've been waiting for you. Psychologically, we often sneeze on people in our relationships until you begin to understand that wisdom always comes with a good feeling. That's maybe I should go to the fourth point. I'll come back to practicality, the final paragraph. And another very important thing to remember, I love he just lists off the four things that are most helpful to us in terms of wisdom. Such knowledge will come via a feeling, not from an intellectual understanding, but from a feeling. You have to allow the feeling to enter your soul. Bada bing. And once this feeling enters your soul, you find the wisdom. Or I should say it finds you, maybe. Once you find the wisdom, you can intellectually understand it. This is why I say to you simply, understanding it intellectually is of very little value, because when you do this, all you do is take on another belief, another concept, and a concept or a belief does not hold truth. You know how they say, and the truth will set you free? And truth is eternal. It means that when we fall out of ourselves, our ideas about life, our labels, our judgments, our shoulds, when we fall out of that dimension of our mind, this deeper intelligence fills us with feeling and knowing. Silence and the feeling of love. One of my favorite quotes of Sid is the state of not knowing, silence, no thought, the state of no thought, and the feeling of love are coupled together like lovers. They go hand in hand. So if you find this quiet beyond thinking, you also find this feeling, and in that feeling is the knowing that guides you. So isn't it interesting that most adults, when they're having difficulty or upset, do more thinking rather than run full speed into the unknown to be nourished and guided. So in parenting, we fall into this space and there's then a feeling, and it will guide you. You don't even have to know what to say. You don't have to have read in a book what to say to your kids then. You just go find them. And if you're in that space, in that quiet, in that feeling, you just open your mouth. Whatever comes out will be perfect. Same is true with my wife. We have low moods, we get upset, and to recognize, oh yeah, just a natural dip in thought. Leave it alone, it flows. And then you begin to empty of that thinking and you fill with deeper feeling. You bring that to a person consistently. It's the only way I know any relationship can get better. Not by sneezing on people. I don't see people go, thank you. I've been waiting for that. That's so helpful. In a family crisis, you know how they say in case of emergency, they don't say, think yourself into a frenzy and try and figure out what to do. They say, stay calm. Why? Because when we're calm, there's clarity, which is a feeling and perspective and a knowing. You have more common sense when we're calm. Working with top business executives in the country, they'd be all upset about a problem and trying to figure it out, only relying on their computer to analyze and figure it out. And it would stress them out, burn them out, exhaust them, deplete them. And they wouldn't find the answers they were looking for. Sid was fond of saying love, or that deeper feeling. Love is always, always the answer. Because it's in that feeling that the intelligence, the wisdom of the universe plays through you and guides you. So you have to go, what am I going to rely on here? My puny little intellect, my little computer, my little laptop computer filled with information, most of it conditioning. Am I going to rely on that to try and find answers? Or do I have the humility? Humility, the word itself means coming down to earth, to the humus, the rich soil where everything grows, necessary for growth, humility, coming out of our ivory tower. I know what to do. I know what's right. Coming down to earth, coming to our senses, to not knowing rather than knowing, to the great unknown. And the paradox is, it's the great unknown to the intellect, but in the unknown is the place where the known reveals itself, where you just know what to do. I've never met a person who, when they get quiet, don't know what to do. If they try and figure out what to do, it'll be very complicated, very confusing, struggle. I'm struggling over this issue. I'm struggling over this problem. Oh boy. Well, struggle just means you're trying to think your way to the answer. When the joke is we're connected to the intelligence of the universe that knows how to create the universe and operate it. That's why some people say, let go and let God. Same thing. You can even just say, trust in your own common sense. They're just words. Sometimes Sid would summarize his whole teaching as it's just thought. It's all thought. Everything we're experiencing is creating from thought. And you realize that you start letting go of thoughts that create tension, stress, and upset for you. And what do you discover? That underneath all that thinking, there's a quiet in your soul. And in that space, there's a feeling. And out of that feeling comes all the guidance we'll need. And it's often the last place we look, but it's with understanding it more and more, you begin to trust in that. Blind faith, because you can't see it. We can know it, we can experience it. People have for centuries. I would like to stop at this point, Steph, and if people heard something that you found helpful, I'd love to hear that. It's a beautiful way of sharing, is sharing what's coming alive for you or what is making sense or feeling right. Or if you have any questions about this, they're certainly welcome.
Yeah, so you're invited to go down to your reactions button, and then you can raise your hand from there, and then Dicken can see you, and I'll be happy to unmute you so you can ask your question or share what you're seeing. Hi, V. Can you unmute yourself, V?
Yeah.
There you go.
Hi. Sorry about that. Hi.
Hi.
Yeah, hi, Dicken. It's absolutely amazing to be listening to you in person. I've read so much of your stuff, and I've read your book, and I've seen lots of your other work, and I love everything you say. But what really has hit home for me today is the bit you said about allowing the emotion in and then waiting to see what it tells you, what your wisdom does with that feeling, what your wisdom then does with it to show you the next step. Because I think sometimes when the emotion, the feelings come in, that's where the thinking just starts buzzing away in a really unhelpful way. So I was just going to share that's really kind of hit home for me today. So thank you for that.
Oh, that's very nice. Yeah. We empty is what all the mystics say, and it becomes so simply revealed by Sid Banks and the principles, is when we recognize thought, we start dropping tons of thinking that we do that's not helpful to hold on to. Doesn't hurt to have it come through us, but to hold on to it, to think into it, is the only problem we suffer psychologically. That creates our stress, our tension, our upset, our confusion. And then there's the recognition of thought. Falling out of that, we become more awake, more present, more alive. And then there's a filling. There's emptying, and then a filling. And then we bring that into the world through kindness, love, generosity, creativity, beauty.
Thank you.
No, you're welcome. It's so nice to hear what you're seeing about that, V. I'm very happy for you. I can tell by your feeling what you're seeing. Yeah, it's showing. There you go.
Yeah, this whole thing's been a revelation for me ever since I discovered the three principles. So
Revelation, I like that word.
yeah.
Good. Christina.
Hi, Dicken.
Hey.
I'm a fellow Northwest of the United States person.
Oh, wonderful.
Mhm. I would say that my 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 habit when I find myself thinking too much is to go to nature, and I expect that when I go into nature, my thinking will slow down. But sometimes I have caught myself in nature still thinking too much.
Yes, no, of course, me too. Because that's not the nature you really are looking for. You're looking for your true nature. It's not out there.
Right. It's just
Right.
I feel supported. I feel when I
Yeah,
connect to
yeah,
what you say, everything is spirit in form, the wind, the trees, the water, the birds, and when I put my attention there, it's a way that helps me to somehow find the new speed of the slowing down, the quiet.
yeah.
Mhm.
Now you take that one step further
Yeah.
as you're letting go of your thinking, but you're holding on to your attention. Now let go of your attention too.
Mhm.
Let it all go, everything. Don't hold anything back and see
Okay.
what happens.
Could you
It's
could you say a little more? I'm not sure I understand. Like if I'm walking and so it's like loosening everything and just being, just seeing the birds and not thinking about it any further than just
a snow globe.
yes.
Thinking shakes it hard.
Right.
Keeping your attention on things as if that's going to bring you well-being is another idea
Right.
that you're holding on to. When we set it down, we let go of
Everything.
everything. And then if you just allow yourself to be busy-minded, allow yourself to be whatever you are without holding any of it, it settles on its own, just like the snow globe.
Right. In other words, it's not me really settling. It's just me surrendering.
Beautiful, beautiful. Oh, I love that. It's not you settling. Wisdom knows how to clear your mind, how to settle. We just get out of the way. As long as we're still involved in doing something, we're still shaking the jar a little. Ego will come up with 100 different tricks to keep shaking it.
Right.
Maybe I'll do this, or maybe I'll just follow my breathing, or maybe I'll just watch that bird,
Right.
and then we just let everything be as it is.
Thank you. Thank you.
Oh, you're welcome. Great, thanks. Hey, Chris.
Hello, nice to see you.
Big hug, my friend. Long
Well,
time.
I think this just this what with the metaphor with the flute and the breath,
Mm,
and I just thought, well, that wasn't that how God made us?
yes,
Breath into clay.
yes,
Just well, it's this just letting this breath be and not having an idea or a concept about what it is.
yes.
Yeah, and
Oh,
that's just the beauty of this. And I
that's,
just from I think I counted the principles in 2014 roundabout, and tried to understand it very hard with my intellect, and several times I've been giving up, and then the good stuff comes.
yeah, yeah.
So I think that's just to say to people who are starting in this, it's give up.
Yeah, the sooner we give up, the better. We're so afraid of giving up.
Because it's not intellectual. It really
Yeah,
isn't.
it's not.
And but there's a nice feeling when you give up, when you. And I'm also a photographer and artist, and it's just this experience that every time I try to do it, it's
Yeah,
not working. But as soon as I kind of leave the let it be, um, things start to happen. And I'm so grateful that I know we're on the same page there, Dicken. I know you love photography too. So
I
nice seeing
do.
you. That was just my 5 cents.
It's so great to see you and that you're doing well. You know, it reminds me, Chris, one of the greatest prayers, one of the simplest prayers is, come, Holy Spirit, come.
Exactly.
And we become open and receptive. And then there's an emptying as our thought snowflakes settle. And then there's an infilling of spirit. These are metaphors.
Yeah.
They're not literal, they're metaphors based on what the experience of that is like. Emptying, a letting go, a release, a surrender, and then a in-breath. The word for spirit in Latin is breath.
It is.
Same, the breath of life. When we set our burden down, which is never in the world, it's in our thinking. Thanks, Chris. Take care. Lars.
Nice to see you again.
Yeah, good to see you.
I have also this, which Chris said about sneezing was a good one for me. And also I have tried many times to share this understanding, and I've only been able to when I actually didn't want it to, kind of. Yeah.
I know the feeling.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And now when you were talking, I discovered that I really have to show up, understanding that I don't know anything.
Yeah.
Kind of. I don't know if I expressed it good, but I have to accept that I don't understand, and it's okay that I don't understand anything.
Yeah.
And then see what comes up.
And then see what comes up. That's the beauty right there.
Yeah.
When we don't know, we're just pregnant with possibility, waiting to give birth to what shows up.
So that was really a loving
We
one.
just see what shows up.
Yeah. So
Right.
Thank you for that one.
Yeah, you're welcome. The sneezing one. I learned that the hard way, as you can imagine.
Yeah, that was really a good one also for me and my relationship. So yeah.
Yeah, Christina.
You know, as I'm hearing everyone, I'm thinking you talked about how the flowers and the plants turn to the light.
Yeah.
And then you also talked about humility in the humus, you know, the land, the earth, and this connection between, you know, the light and the earth. And here we are, and we surrender, we go to the humus, and then we open to the light. I mean, it's just beautiful, beautiful metaphors. Thank you so much.
I've always loved metaphors. It's hard to talk about what's invisible. It can't be explained. So metaphors are built to point people towards something that can't be explained. So at one point, Sid says you can only talk about the principles using metaphors or stories, ultimately, because you can't explain. How do you explain what is before the five senses? Before, Sid would say, step within, go beyond thought, step within into infinity. How can anyone explain infinity? It's a space. It's a formless. intelligence. It's a formlessness that's infinite. No one can explain that. Sid would say, I can't explain it. I can't explain it. I can use words to try and point people toward their connection to that. And if people have little glimpses of that connection between the psychological and the spiritual.
They also feel, I think, where you're coming from. You know, the person, I mean, obviously you you have experienced this enough times, you know, that you're coming from there, and people that sit around you and listen to you, they feel that. And they're inspired. That's some of the sunlight, you know, that you're shining on us in a way.
I love thinking of all of us, Christina, as radiant beings.
Right.
It's like the sun, metaphorically, is within everybody. And when we're caught up in our thought clouds, the sun is still there as much in as when it's not cloudy. The sun doesn't go anywhere. It doesn't diminish. The light doesn't. It's just we're temporarily not able to see it when we're caught in the clouds. And then we wake up to the fact of clouds that they're just not truth, not the whole picture. And we fall into the blue sky that's always there, that the clouds are within. And then in that space of open sky, where we're being the sky, our true nature, this light is revealed to us.
It's the weather. I remember the story of that you told a long time ago to the how do you call this person? The wife of your son who was going on a trip on an airplane, was really afraid.
Yes,
And
yes.
you explained to her the weather, that, you know, we're part of nature and there's weather in nature, and it's not about our control. We can't control this planet. So.
Boy, that did something for her. She had an insight then.
Right.
Yeah. It's normal to have weather. It's not wrong. When we have thought storms, it's not wrong or bad. When we become aware that we're in a thought storm, we're sane as can be, and we can be kind while we're upset. Kindness can show up in many different ways, often by keeping our mouth shut. What a beautiful act of kindness. You know, I have a cold, I cover my sneeze, and that's just an act of kindness. It's being respectful. Anyone else have anything you'd like to ask or share?
No, Anna, are you still here? You want to unmute yourself? I know you had your hand up earlier.
Hi, I'm so glad I was able to join again. I had a technical difficulty. I don't know where to begin. This has been so rich, and the feeling is, for me, something so valuable, because it's an experience. It's non-conceptual, because it's just a nice feeling. And even to say a nice feeling, it's taking a step away from.
Yeah, that's right. At one point, this really helped me, because I was trying to figure out if the feeling I was in was the feeling. So here I am analyzing my feelings, trying to say, is this a feeling? Is this a nice feeling? Is this a good feeling? And it's like when I fall out of my thinking, there's always a feeling there. But one time Sid says, there's no word in any language to describe that feeling. You can call it, you can use words to point toward that feeling: peace, joy, love, compassion. You can call it things, but when we're not in our thinking, we're not labeling. Babies don't go, is this the right feeling? Oh my God, is this peace or joy? Is this love? What is this feeling, for God's sake? Right? They don't take it into their intellect to analyze. So we fall out of the intellect. There's always a feeling there. Don't worry about it. And it's in that feeling without even waiting for a lot of people wait for wisdom. No, ego is waiting for something. When I fall out of that, I don't wait while I'm driving a car for wisdom. It's always there. The instant you're out of your intellect, you're being guided, whether you know it or not. You're being lived beautifully. As soon as you go, so what do I do? Now you're up trying to analyze it and figure it out. You fall back and you're guided. It's in that quiet feeling space. There's always guidance. And sometimes guidance does come as an idea or an image or a perception or words saying, do this or don't do that, or
Beautiful. A long time ago, I had this thought that what we're doing here is learning to live as love.
Mhm.
And what you described before was exactly that. Was
Mhm.
what you say about you can still be old, stirred up, and be loving is so true, because
Yeah.
in the sneeze, I love that because it's so lighthearted, and I needed to hear that.
Good. Yeah, thank you. Is it Nina or Nina?
It's Nina. I live.
My daughter's name is Nina. That
Yeah.
is wild. I love that name, obviously.
Thank you. You
Yeah.
have told me that before, so I knew.
Oh, great, great.
I live in Norway, so my English is not very good, but I will try to say something.
Yes.
But I was wondering, maybe I should just be silent when the last speaker talked about a label, the feeling. But my feeling now is there was a word coming to me. It's a big trust.
Mm.
When I experience as true that I'm lived and that I'm the flute and the wind is just playing me. It's open up a big trust and freedom, and that open space is kind of nothing.
Yeah. Yeah.
And nothing is very easy to carry or to go with.
Yeah.
So the word trust and nothing was coming to me. So
Yeah.
I'm very thankful for that you are giving us this.
Mm. Beautiful words that are alive for you. They're not just words anymore, because those are words coming to you fresh from that space that are alive. So those would be words you would share or you would use, because they're the best pointers for you at this moment, right at this moment.
Yeah.
Right? Trust. Oh, when you talk about trust, you're just radiant, Nina.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, there it is. Very nice. Hmm. Arne Jarek, so good to see you. Hi.
Hi. I'm feeling so sleepy right now. Love it. I love when you said about being informed by spirit. I love word playing.
Yes.
I was laughing so hard when you said it. Because I could see myself, I was informed, but I'm still trying to do this. let it go.
Yeah, yeah.
Let
You're
it
being
go. Yeah. Yeah. So funny. Thank you.
Oh, thank you. How's everything in Greenland going?
We're still snowing.
Still snowing.
I miss spring.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's coming.
Yeah. I hope so.
Good to see you. Thank you for sharing.
Good to see you too.
Oh, yeah. Mm. Here's another metaphor I'd share with you is that all of us at times get out of balance between our intellect and wisdom because we operate best when we're in balance, and wisdom in a sense guides us toward how to use the intellect wisely because it's a beautiful gift. We're not trying to get rid of the intellect, we're trying to use it wisely. But often we're not using it wisely, and as soon as we're not using the intellect wisely, there's tension or stress or upset. Very simply, there is a contraction, there's tension. That's a wonderful thing because it's a signal to us, letting us know we're trying to use the intellect for something it wasn't designed for. And then we come home, fall back into the space where we find that balance. And as Sid would say, then you get the best of both worlds, the intellect and wisdom. So sometimes it's fun to think about things and make plans and have ideas, and it helps us have language so that we can communicate. But as soon as there's tension, close the laptop, put your screen down. You've had enough screen time. I just saw on TV today, kids are doing 4 to 6 hours of screen time average in the United States, and they really recommend like 1 hour or 2. And there's huge difference in how those kids do on all different metrics. 1 or 2. I know people who spend all day thinking about things, so they're on screen time 12 hours a day. So we say, okay, you've had enough screen time. I'm going to put some parental controls on your, it's called wisdom, is going to put some parental controls on how much screen time you've had. You need to do what ego does not want to do and nobody wants to do, which is become nobody and know nothing. And the paradox is that's when we discover everything we're looking for. Go figure. Zelda.
Unmute. Hey, this is a great conversation, Dicken and everyone. Some crazy thought just popped into my head when you mentioned screen time. Like 1 hour of screen time was the recommended, I don't know, allowance for kids.
Yeah.
I just associated screen time with thinking and thoughts. And I'm thinking, sometimes it feels like we're looking through a screen, looking through all these thoughts. Like I loved your metaphor of the storm, a thought storm. But wouldn't that be a wonderful thing to get us from just stopping thinking, stopping all these thoughts, like stopping the screen. We can monitor our screen time with our Apple devices. You know, you've had 4.5 hours daily of screen time, and I use it a lot for my business and my work, because I do a lot of online coaching all over the world, and I'm always on my screen.
Yeah.
So wouldn't it be awesome if there was some way of us going, okay, you've had, I don't know, 11 hours of thinking time, that's enough.
We do. We have a signal, let us know, and it's in our feeling.
Yeah.
Tension is our friend. It's a feedback signal. That it's wisdom based. It's part of the design of this system. It's perfect. The tension, if you understand it, is inviting you back to wisdom.
Oh, I love that. I'm writing it down. Tension is our friend. It's
a good thing. Thank God we feel tension, angry, hurt, sad, upset. It's inviting us to let wisdom weigh in.
Oh, that's great.
We've heard what our memory says. We've heard what our conditioning says. We've heard what information comes to mind. Now let wisdom weigh in, because that's the only way we can be balanced.
And sometimes, isn't it, you know, it's like that saying, too much information. Sometimes we can have information overload, and it's like time to unplug.
Yes.
Yeah. Oh, I love that, Dicken. That's great. Yeah.
Good. Thank you.
Thank you.
Very nice, Zelda. Thank you. And I liked how you said, when we're caught up in thought, we're looking through a screen. Sid used that metaphor a lot. I like it. I've used that with kids. I've taken colored transparencies and you put red in front and say, that's what it looks like when you look at the world through angry thought. Everything looks red. Then I put up a blue, and this is what happens when you look through blue thoughts and everything looks blue, right? And then there is a state of mind where we're not as filtered, and where Sid would say that seeing life as it is rather than distorted by our own conceptual mind. We're seeing life directly, like when we're born, we see life undistorted. We're not looking through concepts. And so we come back to this state of freshness, this state of newborn consciousness, of presence free of the contamination. And we're looking at a window, not through mud on the window or so much water, it's all distorted. It's a clear view of life. So you see with understanding, you can see that you're in a low mood and having thoughts that if you get caught up in will create difficulty for you. You can see other people innocently caught up in their thinking when you see clearly. See through the eyes of understanding. I don't mean intellectual understanding. I mean, when we understand is to stand under our intellect, and then we have true understanding, a knowing, compassion. We have compassion. We can see our kids caught up, and instead of being upset with them for being that way, you have compassion, and oh, they're just caught up. Poor dears. When their head's clear, the light will come back through again, just like with anybody. Let me see if what I bring to them now helps them get out of their head or makes it worse. I used to come to my front door of my house. I'd come home from sharing the principles. First of all, I'd check my state before I walked in the house to see what I was bringing home with me. What feeling am I in? And then I would open the door and I'd look in, and my wife and my son and daughter, and I'd look to see, because you can tell immediately state of mind if you look, and see who is in the worst state of mind. And then just for fun, for a long period of time, I would go to the person, almost like triage. I'd go to the person who is having the most difficulty and see if my presence or my words or actions might be helpful. And boy, did I learn a lot, because I couldn't do the same thing with my daughter that I did with my son. They responded differently. I touch my daughter when she's upset, she gets more upset. I touch my son, he calms down. How do we learn? How do we know? Wisdom guides us, helps us know, helps us discover what works and what doesn't. Not our intellect. You can't get that. You can't Google that one. Do I touch my daughter now or not? Google.
Dicken, it's Christina.
Yeah, hi.
Again. Yeah, so as a parent, and you said that children in this country stay 6 hours in front of the screen. As a parent, if a parent is sitting here today and they realize, oh yeah, I've noticed my child stays at least 6 hours in front of the screen, so there is a compassionate way of saying, now, I mean, how did you approach a situation like this? It's not my situation. My children are grown and gone, but I'm just like, okay, so how would you do this in a way of, and each child is going to react differently according to their temperament, and it's a question of listening and seeing how they react. But what would be a compassionate way to reduce the amount of screen that a child?
The only thing I know, because I never know how to answer those kinds of questions.
Yeah.
It's
an intellectual.
You should do it. No, but it's a valid question, but it can be answered either by the intellect, where we try to figure out what to do, right, or we can let wisdom bring us in the moment something that's helpful. So that's why the best advice I can give parents ever is, when in doubt, look within rather than out at what your kids are doing. Look within. Take responsibility for your own. Seek ye first the kingdom of God. Look within and fall into that space of deeper feeling, and you'll stop asking, what should I do? You'll just be moved. You'll be moved to do something that comes from your heart. And so it's parenting from the heart. But
or relating.
You don't even need to know what to do or how to do it. Trust.
Right.
You begin to trust that when I don't know, there's a feeling and a knowing.
And this is with a child or with a partner. I mean, it's
anything. Yeah.
Anything. As you relate, right?
Yeah.
Right. Thanks.
Carolina, yay.
Hi, Dicken. Hi, everybody. Oh my God, this is so moving. And I'm so thankful to be here with all of you and with you, Dicken. And I'm going to be really honest. I don't think I've ever been this lost. And I've probably come to know the principles, 10 years ago or something. And I've never been this lost in worry and future thinking. And I catch myself and I remind myself, but it's like I can't get out of of the movie theater.
Yeah. There's lessons to be learned when we can't get out of the movie. And I have to tell you, honestly, it's happened to me. It doesn't matter how long you've been around the principles. It can happen at any time. And it's an opportunity to take our learning to another level, because we do have to learn how to navigate when we can't get out, when we're really stuck, and how to navigate that, and how to let our little glimmer of common sense guide us while we're going through that period. And it's burning off conditioning, the way I look at it. And it's inevitable. And it's happened to every single one of the teachers that I know that has been around this for 40 years. So you're a youngster, you've been around 10 years. And so you're going through a period. A number of years back, I went through a period of just day after day after day of just, I could not get out of my head at all. But I knew I was nuts, so I minimized my decision making, and just had to learn how to. It helped me learn more about patience, and I came out the other side with more compassion than ever for people who are stuck, rather than saying it's just thought, get out of it. So there's always more to see and to learn, and it's, I'm sorry. I'm sorry, because I know that that can be very painful to go through that, and yet there's opportunity here too, and it creates lots of humility, lots can really burn away another layer of ego just when you think you got this. I know.
Yeah, exactly. And what you say about compassion, I just thought, oh my gosh, I didn't know you could be in there for so long, like,
yes.
And the amount of compassion now I have for, as you say, for other people. I'm a compassionate person usually, but I can see now that the level of not seeing, it's something I haven't seen before like this.
Yes.
And it's just, I'm just following the little breadcrumbs in the woods, the little tiny bits of lights, like.
Yes. I love that metaphor. I mean, we're deep in the woods and we're just following that little breadcrumbs of common sense that are gradually moving us in a direction. Sid used to just reassure us. He would say, I can guarantee you on the other side of this, you're going to start just bubbling over with insight. You're going to see so much because you're going through it. You've dropped to a level, but you're going through it from a different level of understanding. So it's not the same when people are at very low levels of understanding, go through a very long extended time. It's too painful to bear. And they act it out in one way or another that's very difficult. So
thank you so much.
My heart's with you, sweetie. I know many times going through but I can tell you there's lessons to be learned here too, and you'll see. Thanks for sharing that. It's very important for people to know there's no judgment. We can't control the weather. So sometimes it rains and it goes away. Like in Hawaii, it's like rain and 5 minutes later it's over. And other times you're someplace and rains and it doesn't stop for like weeks. I mean, it's not a matter of controlling the weather. It's a matter of being able to just be with what is as it is. And then there's all kinds of breadcrumbs show up. Maybe not that chocolate cake you're used to, but some breadcrumbs.
I'm fine with just one little breadcrumb at a time. Thank you so much.
Yeah, bless you.
Thank you so much, Carolina, for sharing. I think it's really, really good to get real with this too. You know,
Absolutely.
yeah. And thank you so much, Dicken, for this time, sharing this time with us. It's been amazing. And thank you everyone for coming.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you, Stephanie.
Thank you, Dicken. Thank you.
What a delight.
Everyone.
Thank you.
Hello to all the people I haven't had a chance to say hello to.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Very nice.